Hi everyone. Today we are going to see the topic constructor in Java. So what is a constructor? Constructor is a special method. The constructor name and the class name should be same name. So what is the main function of this constructor is it is used to initialize the object. The constructor name and the class name should be same, and we should not specify the return type or even void in the constructor. And one more special thing about constructor is the constructor no need to call it explicitly, so it will be automatically called. So when the constructor will be automatically called, the constructor will be automatically called when we are trying to create the object for a class. So what is the main function of the constructor? The constructor is used to set the initial value of the object's attributes. For example, if a class is having two attributes A and B, we can able to set the initial value for these two attributes by using constructor. So now we will see the syntax of a constructor. So see here, class name, and this is constructor. So the constructor name should be same name as the class name. So when the constructor will be called, when I am going to create the object for the class. So see here, class name, object name equal to new class name. So when this line is getting executed, automatically our constructor will be called. Define a constructor. The constructor can be called explicitly, and there are two types of constructors available. One is constructor with arguments and another one is constructor without arguments. If the arguments are empty, then it is called as constructor without arguments, and if we are having arguments in the constructor, then it is called as constructor with arguments. So next, if the constructor is having arguments, the value for those arguments must be specified in the object declaration. So that point I will explain when we are seeing the example program. So constructor cannot be abstract, final, static or synchronized. And if we want, we can use the access modifiers while specifying the constructors. So what are the access modifiers we will use are public and private. If we are giving public modifier, then the object can be created by anyone. If the access modifier is specified as a private, only that particular class can able to create the object. So already we seen that there are two types of constructor, the constructor without arguments and constructor with arguments. Constructor without arguments is called as default constructor. Constructor with argument is called as parameterized constructor. So now we will see the first type, default constructor. So the default constructor is a constructor that has no parameters. So in the constructor definition, we will not specify the parameters. That is called as default constructor. So a default constructor is invisible. Even if we are not providing a default constructor, our compiler will have a default constructor. So in default constructors, there are two categories: implicit default constructor, explicit default constructor. So what is implicit default constructor? If the constructor is not defined in a class, so we are the developer or the coder is not writing the constructor in a class. Now the Java compiler automatically provides the default constructor, that is called as implicit default constructor. The constructor is not defined or not written by the developer, but the compiler will automatically provide the default constructor. That category is called as implicit default constructor. So the constructor does not take any parameters, but already we have seen that the constructor is used to initialize the object attribute. So in case of implicit default constructor, the object attributes will be assigned with the default values. For example, if it is an integer, the default value assigned is 0, and for objects the default value assigned will be null. We will see the explicit default constructor. So if we define, the developer define a constructor inside the program with no parameters, then it is called as explicit default constructor. So this constructor will replaces the constructor that is normally created by the compiler. So what is default constructor? A constructor with no parameters, and two categories there, one is implicit and another one is explicit. So the next type of constructor is parameterized constructor. The constructor with two parameters is known as parameterized constructor. Now you see here class, class name, class name. So our constructor name and my class name are same, and if you see in the constructor we are having the arguments. Arguments is also called as parameters. So we need to specify data type and the variable name. So you can have n number of parameters as arguments, and each parameter will be delimited by comma. So how many members you want, you can have it as arguments. So now we will see the example for default constructor. So see here a class triangle, and in this class we are having two attribute, one is base and another one is height. So now we will see a constructor with no argument. So my class name is triangle, and if you see here my constructor name is also triangle. So in this constructor I am going to initialize my object attributes. So what are my object attributes? Base and height. So base equal to 10, height is equal to 25. So other than a constructor I am having one function. The name of the function is area. I am in this function I am trying to calculate the area of a triangle. So now we will see the main function. So my main function syntax is public static void main, and inside my main function I am going to create an object for my class. So what is the syntax to create an object for my class? Class name, object name equal to new class name. So what is my class name? Triangle. So for the object name I am giving it as a T1. So triangle T1 is equal to new triangle. So in this statement we are creating the object for my class. So at this statement, when an object is created, what happens? Already we told that our constructor will be called automatically when an object is created. So when this statement get executed, my constructor will be automatically executed. So when a constructor is executed, inside the block of statements will get executed. So the value for base and height will be initialized with base equal to 10 and height equal to 25. So now my class attributes, both base and height values are initialized. So what is the next line in the main function? So we are calling the area function. So now this area function will be called. So what happens in this area function? 0.5 into 10 into 25. So the value is calculated and the value is returned back. The returned back value is stored inside the variable a. So the next statement I am going to print the a. So this is default constructor. If you see here, no parameter, and this constructor is automatically called when the object is created. Next we will see what is parameterized constructor, the constructor with parameters. So see here, what is my class name? Student, okay, and my constructor is student. If you see for a constructor student, I am having two parameters. One is student name and another one is student age. So student name, we need to store the alphabets. So the data type declared is string. For student age, the data type is integer. We want to store the numbers. And I am having one more method called display. And in the display method, I am going to display my class objects attributes name and age. Name and age is displayed. So now we will see the flow of execution. So usually our execution starts from the main function. So what is the first statement in my main function? I am going to create the object for my class. So already we have seen what is the syntax for object creation. Class name, object name equal to new class name. Here my class name is student. So I am going to create the object S1. So class name, object name S1 equal to new class name is student. Now you need to note one important point here. Since my constructor is having two parameters, I want to pass its value when I am going to create an object. So first one is string data type. So I am passing it as a string value, that is Karthik, and next I want to pass the age. Since its data type is integer, I am passing the numbers. So in parameterized constructor, we need to provide the parameters value when we are creating the object. So if I want to have one more object S2 and I want to pass another set of values, that is Anita and 20. So these two lines automatically executes the constructors. So what is the next line? S1 dot display. So at this time the display method is executed. So in this already we have initialized the class attributes name and age. So the name is equal to Karthik and age equal to 22. So both the values are displayed. Again I am going to call the display method with the second object S2. So now again the same display method will be called. Now the name value will be Anita and the age value will be 20. So this is example for parameterized constructor. Okay. So a quick recap. So what is a constructor? Constructor is a special method. No need to be called explicitly. It will be automatically called when the object is created. So two categories of constructor: constructor with parameter and constructor without parameter. So in constructor with parameter, we need to pass the parameter values when we are going to create the object. So now I will give one exercise. So write a Java program to display the mark of 5 students using class, and the 4 attributes are register number, name, mark and total. Okay. So use default constructor and also a display method to display all this value. Okay. So I am Mallika, assistant professor from the Department of Artificial Intelligence and Data Science, Shriram Engineering College. Thank you.